large professional officer corps ensured a long and bloody war. Scheibert was impressed by the volunteer soldiers and officers' ability to learn on the job, but argued that they shouldn't have had to. Europe's highly trained and disciplined conscripts, led by professionals, would have won the war quickly through a few decisive field battles. As the war dragged on, and battles increasingly revolved around field fortifications and siegecraft, he said that it was a natural result of insufficiently trained officers being unable to adapt to changing battlefield conditions. The French noted that America's geography was far larger and more rugged than Europe's, which made European tactics and strategy impossible. France, Sardinia, and Austria had concentrated 350,000 in Lombardy during the 1859 war, a province roughly the same size as the state of New Hampshire. It was considered dangerously unwise to separate individual armies by more than 50 kilometers in Europe. Yet the Union's armies fought independently along a front over 1,500 kilometers long. This was necessary, but it dispersed the armies too much to win any battle decisively. European armies fought using concentrated artillery to disrupt formations, followed by infantry using fire-in-advance tactics, before finishing with a decisive bayonet charge. Shock cavalry would then rout the enemy, while light cavalry pursued to finish them off, conclusively winning the battle. These tactics worked because European battles took place in open fields and meadows, with long sightlines. But America was primarily hilly woodlands. It was rare for the enemy to be visible beyond 100 meters, limiting artillery's ability to disrupt formations. Infantry was forced to fight prolonged slugfests, unthinkable in Europe. And even if the Americans had heavy cavalry, it would have been wasted on broken terrain. Therefore, they concluded that the American Civil War didn't model European wars and offered few insights. On the one hand, the reports on industrialized logistics, modern weaponry, and command developments all confirmed lessons learned from the British Army's poor showing in the Crimean War. Consequently, new urgency was placed on ongoing reforms and the modernization program. Of course, the Army's program was largely eclipsed by the Royal Navy's rush to replace its wooden ships following the Battle of Hampton Roads. On the other hand, many observers were shocked at how quickly the United States went from barely any military to one comparable to the Continental Standing Armies. They warned that the United States could raise, train, and equip an army capable of conquering British North America before London could respond. Henry Fletcher further warned in his reports and book, History of the American War, that this American army was far more dangerous than it appeared. While it appeared undisciplined and amateurish by European standards, it was adapting and learning from its mistakes far more quickly than a European army could. Europe's officer corps was drawn from the aristocracy, while the rank and file was largely filled from the poorest of the poor. The middle classes largely shunned and were shunned by the military establishment. All decision-making came from the top down, and despite their professionalism, European armies remained rigidly rooted in tradition. The Union Army was egalitarian, drawing from all classes into all ranks. The average American soldier had far more education than his British counterpart, and this meant that the army was learning from both the top down and the bottom up. Consequently, this democratic army recognized that battlefield conditions and improved artillery made rigid formations useless, and adopted looser and more mobile formations. Their preference for fighting from natural cover and prepared fortifications was the logical adaptation to the deadlier modern weapons. This had, in turn, placed more decision-making responsibility on American junior officers, sergeants, and individual soldiers, yet they rose to the challenge. There had been no formal decision to adopt these tactics, but it had naturally spread throughout both armies. This would never be allowed to happen in a European army, and Fletcher argued this was a major weakness on Europe's part. 19th century European wars were fought for fairly limited political ends, while America's war was a fight to the death between nations. Britain's all-volunteer professional army was perfect for limited conflicts and colonial wars. However, if it had to fight a total war like the Americans did, this army would be rapidly depleted, and would have to form a new army from new volunteers and conscripts, just like the Americans were. Therefore, Fletcher argued that mandatory military service should be implemented for all classes, to prepare the currently unmilitary British public for future wars. He also advocated for raising public education and physical fitness standards to match what he saw in America, with a particular need for West Point-style comprehensive officer training.